Greetings, commanders, and welcome. Here you have it, the Type 8. It's gonna be a medium ship, that's a surprise. They didn't say how much cargo, but anyway, in the video, you will see everything they said about this new ship.
So we'll talk about some of the key features. Two things we're going to talk about. We'll talk about after. But I think we should show them the first.
Sure.
So this is the first. So this is called a grey box image of the ship. So you ready for this, chat? This is the first look at the Type 8 transporter. Hooray! Hooray! Now we've got more images to show you, chat. But this, I think, just initial glance, it's radically different, right? I've never seen anything like this in Elite.
When I first heard about the Type 8, I was planning, I expected it to look like the Type 7. As we sort of saw, like you said, the Python Mark II is similar-ish to the Python, a variant. Whereas
You can tell it's from the same family, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with this, I think you can tell it, especially later on, you can see that it is like a Lakon design, but it's so unique and different within the world of Elite. I think something that the design and the art team said was, it's cool. It's nice to have a really cool combat ship that you're flying around with, but our trade players want to look cool at the same time,
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely. I mean, when I saw this, and we're going to move on to the next one in a minute, I got strong vibes just from the grey boxing, right? So this is, and again, we'll talk about this later on when I talk about how clever I think the art team are, because it's like clay, right? And you get the initial shape and then they go on, which we're going to show you in a minute. I saw this silhouette and I was like, I have never seen a ship like this in Elite Dangerous. And immediately, I think it's like the positioning of, excuse me, I'm going to cough here. Excuse me, chat. The positioning of the underhung cockpit and how you're going to see stuff. And then just the engine housing, how it looks. I was like, wow, this looks absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you mentioned, the cockpit is in a really unique place. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I think another thing to mention about, aside from this being one of the coolest looking ships in the game, I think it's going to be really exciting for trade commanders for two real reasons. So it being a V2 ship, it has the sort of enhanced SEO capabilities. So that's going to make a world of difference if you're...
Speed trading.
Exactly. Speed trading within systems, you're going to be all over the place. But also, I think potentially the most exciting news for sort of trade commanders is that this is going to be a medium ship.
So medium pad.
Medium pad, which means that you've got a lot of freedom in terms of like choosing your trade route, deciding where you want to go. But yeah, it's medium, but it still will have a significant cargo capacity. So,
I mean, when you talk about how it changes, I mean, the SEO has already made fundamental changes to Elite Dangerous players as it stands. I think for this with trade, and trade in particular, because it's all about how many credits you can make, right, and how quick you can do it, and like most efficient runs. So I think that coupled with the fact you're going to have a high-capacity cargo ship that fits on a medium pad, that has SEO, I think there's going to be a lot of meta going on, like working out routes, chains, what to trade, where to trade, what runs are going to be the best runs to do. I think it's going to be, it's a really cool design meets functionality with the ship.
It fits that space, right? The dev team said that they wanted to, acknowledge that there was a gap there, and they've got a ship to plug in.
All right, so I think we've got some more stuff to show you right now. So I think if we have a little scroll down to the next picture, that will help us greatly. There we go.
Yes.
So this here is the first kind of, what do we call this? Is a render shot, right? This is a render shot of the Type 8.
Yeah.
So just the difference between the grey box and this blows my mind every time I see it, because you get the shape and silhouette of the grey box, and then you get this. And when I talk about sculpting clay, how they do this is incredible. So Zach, talk to me about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, it's almost like you see it come to life here, right? And I think there's so much inspiration that we'll talk about in a second, but one thing I did want to point out before we get onto that inspiration is on those two sort of really iconic prongs. That's where a lot of your turrets and hard points are going to be. And so when you're in that cockpit view, you're going to have those arms in front of you, and you're going to have that sort of unique view of your hard points firing, and it's going to be super cool. And I think you've mentioned it in the past where you spend a lot of your time in Elite Dangerous within your ship, in your cockpit. And this is giving you a really, really different look at the game.
It's one of the things with the cockpit, for many commanders, myself included, I guess, your ship is just an extension of you, right? Yeah, that is you. So any change to that visual aesthetic is huge, right? So we'll now be able to see the landing gear deploy, which your weapons or hard points deploy, seeing those prongs coming into land, which is going to be really important, like working out where you can put this ship down. I just think anything like that at all just feels like a vastly different experience for players. I'm really excited to see what players do with this. And then of course, any other cool stuff they want to put in their ship afterwards, like you'll be able to see it.
And I think you make a good point about coming into land with this being a sort of big cargo ship. I think sometimes with newer players potentially landing is quite difficult, especially for me.
You're talking about me, aren't you?
You are both of us. I think landing is quite a challenge. Sometimes experienced players fine, but with this cockpit view, you actually can get a really good view of what's underneath you, which should make it quite relatively easy to land this ship safely. Your cargo is safe on the landing.
Well, I mean, even with me flying, it's pretty safe, even with a better view. But I mean, look at this shot. I mean, just we talked about the ship's looking sexy, right? And it's a functional cargo ship transporter, right? Still looks sexy, right? This looks.
It does.
You'd be happy to fly this. I don't want to, again, I don't want to speak ill of the Type 7, but if it's sat next to in a lineup, if you had to take one out on a date, it's not going to be a Type 7, is it?
I think it's a clean winner.
It's a clean winner.
And I think with these images, if you haven't already guessed inspiration-wise,
yes, it's all about inspiration.
So I think, as you can tell, a lot of inspiration was actually taken from just modern-day, industrial machinery.
Yep.
As you can tell by the sort of paneling. So what the team have done, Chris and the team, is actually remove a lot of the external paneling so that you can see a lot of the sort of engines and tools and machinery, just to sort of get that more industrial feel. But apart from that, there is also another big inspiration that the team have taken for this ship, and I think this is what you were talking about straight away, right? So if you haven't guessed, chat, inspiration came from Ron Cobb, who I believe was a really successful sci-fi concept artist, primarily, I believe, famous for Alien, amongst other things. And I think you noticed that.
I mean, I saw the shapes. I mean, I'll be honest. I saw the shapes, and then as soon as I saw the colour, I immediately went to the power loader prongs from Aliens, and then obviously there's the Betty from Alien Resurrection. We don't talk too much about that film, but the aesthetic design is fantastic. It's just, it feels used. It feels like a working ship. It's a bit used. It's a bit bruised. It feels like it's run a million light years already, and that's what I love about this ship. It's what I like about all Lakon ships, actually, is they speak to me on an aesthetic level. I've said this before, I don't like the super sleek designs. I don't like the Mamba. I don't like the Courier. Not because I think the ships are terrible, I just don't like the design. I don't feel lived in. This feels lived in. You can almost imagine this landing on a desolate rocky planet and doing some trade. It's just a wonderful, wonderful design piece.
Yeah, and I think another little sort of Easter egg is the render. Obviously, the colours aren't particularly final. They may be, they may not be. But the yellow we've gone for here is another nod to the Nostromo, which apparently was initially Ron Cobb had the idea that it would be yellow.
Oh, really? I never knew that. I'm a big fan of it. That's a bit of trivia I did not know. Yes, fact checkers if we're wrong. But I imagine that's pretty right. I mean, I think I saw the picture of the Betty was also yellow, so I'd imagine you're probably absolutely bang on there. Yeah. So there we go. But it's a wonderful, wonderful looking ship. And also you've got something we like to talk about, which is greebling.
Greebling, yes, it's a great word. And I'm sure a lot of sort of sci-fi fans might be aware of what greebling is, but if you're not, think about maybe the Death Star from the sort of original Star Wars film, and how the sort of close-ups of the Death Star had all that sort of detailing on the model. And basically it's just sort of lowering and raising elements and adding that sort of blocky feel to make it just feel much more, like you said, sort of lived in and realistic. And you can see that with the Type 8, especially on the prongs there, the sort of, as you saw in the block out, it was very much like, a rectangular, you saw the idea, right? Yeah. But it really comes to life when you add that greebling and the detail throughout.
But it's like I said, it's like they get that initial shape and then you just carve away until they get something that sort of fits the aesthetic. But I genuinely love this. And again, although I speak ill of the Type 7, you can still see it's part of the family. You can still see it's clearly a Lakon ship. Still fits quite nicely in that gap. We have now fulfilled the Type 8. It now makes sense. It's not a mystery. So there we go. That is a first look, I guess, at the Type 8. Just to recap, next show, we will hopefully be able to show you this in action. We're both moving around a little bit. Very much, I think we did this with the Pythons, weren't
similar,
we? Probably hopefully try and get you a cockpit shot to get an idea of what the cockpit will look like as you're moving around. But is SEO enabled? Will fit on a medium pad. Will have a great capacity. So it's going to really change the game in terms of trading.
And it looks super cool.
And it will look super cool. Like you can wear your trucking cap.
You can.
You can look pretty cool pulling up to your whatever space station or fleet carrier you're going to be
medium, any medium.
On a medium pad. And you can make some serious credits. Zach, thank you so much for coming and have a chat to us.